Come watch how this one on paper came together and hear about my journey to becoming a full-time artist. Okay, let's go. Hello and welcome. This is Betty with Betty Franks Art, and I am happy to have you here with me today. When I was putting this video together and I was doing the editing, I could not find the first stage of this painting. Don't know what happened to it. I don't know if maybe I accidentally deleted it or I just didn't turn the recorder on. So we're kind of starting in on this about a fourth of the way through, thereabouts. And this is on paper, 24 by 18 inches. And I'm just kind of coming into it because I had already created those first few layers. I'm coming into it with mark making because I'm still really early in the stages of creating this painting. So I've got plenty of time to kind of throw down some mark making and some paint because I'm still at the beginning. I've got my puffy jacket on, which tells me it was pretty cold in the studio that day. We went through a bit of a cold spell. I'm in California, and yes, it can get cold here. Not super cold, not so cold that it's going to snow. We had a little bit of snow up in the mountains here, but other than that, it very rarely comes all the way down. But still pretty cold in the studio. One day it was 48 degrees in there. Other days it's usually like in the low 50s. I do have a heater running right behind me to keep me warm, or at least to try to warm me up. I don't have a ceiling on my studio space because it's an old cannery building, and so there are no ceilings. It just opens up to the ceiling of the building that has a whole lot of lighting in it. I started off with some cool colors, so the greens, the blues, some yellows in there as well. I see some purple down in that left-hand corner, and now I'm coming into it with some warm colors. I'm using a palette knife there to just add some paint directly on. I like to try to mix things up a little bit when I remember. I don't always remember to do that. But instead of always just using a brush, I like to sometimes come in with a palette knife and apply paint that way because it just kind of gives it a little bit of a different look. So this painting, I really struggled with it. And I don't really know why. It could be that the colors I picked, the direction I was going with it. Not every painting is a breeze. It's some of them are not easy at all. And this is an example of one that just simply wasn't easy for me. And you'll see as we go through it, I worked on it quite a bit to pull it together and have it make sense. As you saw in the photo at the very beginning, it is a bit of a quieter painting compared to my other ones that I normally do. And sometimes I do those where they're a bit more, I guess, muted. It didn't have quite those bright, vibrant colors in it like some of my other paintings. But I like it nonetheless. Sometimes I'm just in that more quieter mood, frame of mind, whatever we want to call it. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for finding me. And if you are enjoying what you see so far, or by the end of it, if you're enjoying this video, I welcome you to subscribe to my channel and also hit the bell so that you'll be notified of my future videos. I've got the brush back in hand. And I see I'm coming through with some lighter values. I've got some darker values from those earlier layers already. And I might actually be coming in with some lighter values, maybe a little too early. I usually like to do it a little bit later in the painting. But then again, I already had a couple layers down before this video started, so maybe it is time to bring in some lighter values. You can see I'm using some neutrals there, that kind of mustardy yellow, brownish yellow. So leaning more towards some neutrals. If you've been following me for a while and watching all of my videos, thank you. I so appreciate that. I love it when you guys come back. I know some of you folks comment on almost all my videos, and then I start to learn your names after a while. So I appreciate you leaving comments for me as well. Here's another example of this kind of lighter blue, but it's kind of a softer blue. It's definitely not a vibrant blue. Love that color. Leaning a little bit more towards teal, which is my absolute favorite color. And then I added some white to that, lightened it just a bit more to work that upper area. I like dispersing the same color but different values of that color. So adding a little bit of a darker color to it, or adding a little bit of a lighter color to it. Coming in with trying to add some larger scale shapes to the piece. Wanted to talk a little bit about my mark making tools that I absolutely love. I think I've been using pretty much the same ones over the years, and that is one is first and foremost just a regular number 2 pencil, simple pencil. I love using that. And then using Prismacolor pencils. I love the Prismacolor because of the quality of the colors. When I first started doing mixed media work years ago, I started off with my daughter's inexpensive colored pencils, and that worked just fine as well. So if you're just getting started and you've got some Crayola crayons or some just regular color pencils, use those. Use what you got until you can figure out that that's really what you love to do and you really love using those, and then you can spend the money buying the really good stuff. But in the meantime, just use what you've got. I still have in my stash a couple of my daughter's pencils because I love the colors of them, so I kept those. Here I'm hitting it with the dryer, trying to speed up my process so I can move to the next layer. I'm sure I'm going to be going over some areas that are still wet. So some other mark making tools I love are the Stabilo Woodies. Those are very much like a crayon. They come in a chubby stick, and I just love those, love the colors of them. The Neocolor 2 crayons, or Neocolor 1. Neocolor 1 is not water soluble, and Neocolor 2 is water soluble. So you pick whichever one you like. I prefer the Neocolor 2 because I really like it when, here I am trying to warm up a bit by sticking the hair dryer down my shirt so I can take the chill off. Anyway, Neocolor 2 I prefer because I really like it when I can put down marks and they move a little bit. They don't stay in place. Now, if I want them to stay in place, I can use my Prismacolor pencils because those will stay in place. But the Neocolor 2s and also the Stabilo Woodies, they will move around a bit. And I just like that. I like not having full control over every single mark that I put down. Let's see, what other products do I use? I like using Inktense pencils and Inktense blocks. I don't have any of the blocks in my studio. I actually had a pack that I took to Croatia with me. So when I go there, which I'm leaving in a few days, the time of this recording, the date of this recording is January 16th. So I'm leaving in a few days to head over, and I'm going to try using them a little bit more this time than I did last time. Last time I think maybe I didn't even use them last time, but the time before I did. So they're awesome because of the intensity of their colors. So those are a lot of fun. And the chalky ones, the Inktense blocks are more like pastels where they're chalky. So a lot of the products that I like to use, surprisingly, they don't stand up well to when I'm ready to varnish. And that means that I have to do some kind of a fixative on them to secure those marks in place. And I've got a video on how I do that. I'm going to include that here for you if you want to reference it. And when I am ready to, so after this is dry, I'm going to wait. Usually I like to wait up to 5 days to ensure that it's fully dry. If it's summertime, I could probably get away with a couple of days because it's really hot. But once it's dry, then I like to use a spray varnish, as I mentioned. And lately, I've been preferring to use a fixative. So it's Krylon fixative, and no specific reason why. I just have been using it lately. I've been buying those instead of using a varnish spray, but either one will work. It really depends on what you like to use. And the process in the video that I have available is for showing how I do that on paper, just like this paper piece I'm working on now. But the same process is used when I'm creating on wood or canvas. I do the same steps. I think varnishing is so important because you want to protect the artwork that you've created, especially if you're selling your artwork. When I sell it, I want to make sure that it's going to last a long time, and I want to ensure that those colors are not going to be fading over time. And that will happen even if you don't put it in direct sunlight. Sunlight bounces around a room as well, so it can fade a piece if it's not protected. The Liquitex varnish that I like to use has UV protection in it, so it makes me feel so much better knowing that I've done everything I could to protect that piece before it leaves. Here I'm going back to drying it a bit more. I'm sure that there's areas like that upper right that I'm trying to make sure it's completely dry. I'm probably ready to cover it up. Adding that shape back in. Not sure if it stays there till the very end or not. I'm using a finer or a smaller brush in terms of bristles. And I like to use a variety of brushes, some of them being a little bit bigger than this one. The one that I used earlier is probably like a 10. This one might be as well. It's just a round one. Using a variety of different brushes gives you more interesting marks. Now this piece that I'm working on, it's a 24 by 18 as I mentioned, so it's not really a huge piece. So I don't want to use really small brushes, but then again, I don't want to use the really large brushes either. Now I can't remember what the final piece looks like, but I'm thinking those red marks down there, I think I end up taking those out. It doesn't seem to be really working well with the rest of it. The orange ones above seem to be working much better. So when I'm looking at it at this stage, to me, it's like those red and then the orange and then that peachy over on the right. Those all are kind of competing for attention. I love working on paper. To me, paper is just very freeing and tend to be much more relaxed. And even with this one that I struggled through, it's not like a real painful struggling. It's more of a, let's keep working on this. Let's keep trying to figure it out. With paper, to me, I think about, it's just paper. It doesn't cost a whole lot. And so if I totally mess it up, no big deal. One of the things that I love about creating in general is the problem solving aspect of it. So trying to figure out, what's working in the painting, what isn't working. And it's one of the reasons I have copies of my paintings over on the right side. I also have some on the left side that's off screen here, because when I get stuck, I just look at those and say, okay, well, what's something in that I like that maybe I don't have over here that I can add that is going to help push me forward to the next, I don't know, next step in the process. The jar I'm holding now is neutral gray, and I think I added some white to it. I like that neutral gray. It's one of those where I can just blend it in with something else. I don't often use it directly out of the jar. Often I end up using some white with it, or whatever's on my brush, any other colors I have, just adding it to it. When I'm working smaller like this, it's harder for me to get a really good angle for you guys. I tend to stand in the way. Luckily, I move out of the way so I can grab more paint, and then you can see what I've done. So I didn't like those up there, or I didn't like them that dark. Softer version of it I like better. Drinking some hot tea, keep me warm. You can follow me on social media if you like to hang out there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, also on Pinterest, and of course, got my own website. And what else? Or I should say, where else? Well, here on YouTube. I have a number of different podcasts where I have been interviewed. And if you're interested in that, in listening to some of those, I'm going to include a link down below so that you can go to my webpage and you can see the whole listing of all the different podcasts where I've been interviewed. I just did another one last week. It won't be ready until about mid-February, but it was a treat to do, and I'm always excited when somebody asks me to interview me for their podcast. It's such an honor each time, and I just love that opportunity to chat with somebody else about the creative process or about painting in general, or like in this case, the last one I just did was more about women finding a second career after 50. And that's certainly what I did. After the age of 50, I kind of did a shift and left corporate America and moved into being creative and then running an art business. So it was a big shift, and that's what her podcast is all about. So that was really fun to do. I was her first artist to be interviewed. She's been doing this podcast for a number of years and has had a number of wonderful people on there because I've been listening in on her podcasts. And so I was really thrilled that she had asked me. So I'll have information about that soon as well. Depending on when I release this particular video, maybe the podcast will already be out there. So I'll be sure to include the link in the description below, or if you can't find it, just leave me a message below and I'm happy to send you the link. Someone recently asked me if I would talk more about how I got into being an artist and kind of my journey there. So I'd be happy to talk with you guys about that. I do have some videos on art business, and I think in one of them I talk a bit about my journey. I know I talk about it often in the podcast because that's usually one of the questions where we start off, which is, how did you become an artist? And, what did you do to get here? Things like that. So you'll definitely hear that in the podcast. Okay, looks like I took a break here and I'm back. I'm not sure if I just sat down for a while or if it's another day. Since I wear the same thing at the studio, it's hard to tell. But definitely taking out those reds. That was not working, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so talking about my journey to being an artist. So the majority of my life I spent in corporate America. Actually, when I was a senior in high school, I started working at IBM. My mom worked there. A number of my family and friends worked there, family members. And so it was really, it was fun going to a job where, you'd see your uncle or your aunt in the hallways and you stop by and say hi, stuff like that. But so I started off, working in an office environment pretty early on. And I really fell in love with it. I loved paperwork. I loved everything administrative. And so I ended up kind of going in that direction, but majority of my career was spent in customer service management. And I really loved that area. I guess naturally I am a person that likes to help other people. So I can see why I was drawn to customer service. And I also like to not only help customers, but help employees be able to grow and, uh, you know, be really good at what they do. And so I had teams of people, the majority of my more, advanced parts of my career. So I did that for almost 20 years. And it wasn't until my late 40s that I just kind of was getting really burnt out. And the last job that I had where I was at was really stressful for me. And a lot of that, I take in myself. I create my own stress. And I realize that now and I kind of knew that then, but you still do what you got to do. You need to bring home money, you need to pay the bills and all that stuff. So anyway, I had an opportunity to leave that job, leave that career, and I did. And it was wonderful. At first, it was kind of odd and strange. And I just remember there being like afternoons where I just had to myself. I didn't have to do anything. And that's when I started doing a lot more creating and spending a lot more time in my little studio, which was a spare bedroom, and doing mixed media work and just really enjoying it, really loving it. And then, I need to do something. I'm not the type of person that can sit around and do nothing. Especially after a long career in corporate America and customer service management and getting up early and working all day. And it was just really hard for me to just stop doing that kind of stuff. So I got a bit more into creating art and then also posting regularly and then talking about my art. And honestly, if you scroll down on my videos, if you go to the tab that says videos, it'll give you a list of every video I've done. If you scroll way down, I think my first video was in 2014 or 2015. And I was doing some videos. I mean, they were bad, but but some of them actually weren't so bad. Um, they were, yeah, I was just learning how to do all that stuff. So I'm going to pause for a moment about my background and talk about, okay, so here I'm introducing some darker values because I had really covered up a lot of them early on. And that'll happen to me when I'm kind of stuck and I'm having a hard time with a painting. I end up covering up a lot of my darker values. And so coming back in and adding them at this stage is something that sometimes I'll do, but I try to feather out those edges so it doesn't look like it's just all kind of floating on top. Okay, so going back to my story. So I started focusing on just creating more, posting more, and then folks were starting to ask if they could buy my art. And I was like so ecstatic and grateful and thrilled. And so that's where I started learning how to run the art business. And that meant, getting a business license. That meant learning about taxes and collecting taxes and paying sales tax and stuff like that. And then that leads to, doing a website and figuring out how to do that. And that leads to how to make prints available. I also did art festivals for a number of years so that I can get out there, get my art out there. So I tried all kinds of stuff, did all kinds of different things. And in the last few years, really settled into this groove of I built up my social media following, which really helped me be able to not have to go to the art festivals. Because honestly, art festivals are hard work. I've got a video on that if you're interested, I can link that right here for you. And the art festivals meant getting up early, setting up your booth, carrying everything. It would take me 2 to 3 hours to set up in the morning before we got started. And then it was just me. So I had to do everything myself. Fortunately, my brother would come and sometimes he'd come to the festivals when I was ready to break down and he would help me with that, which was fantastic. But anyway, I built up this following on Instagram and on Facebook that allowed me to be able to spend more time working from home, truly from home, which means posting from home and creating from home. And then I was kind of growing in the sense of I was creating larger and larger work, and my garage studio wasn't large enough for me to accommodate that. So then I ended up getting a studio in downtown San Jose, which is about the size of a two-car garage. So very spacious compared to the one-car garage that I was occupying. And I still kept my one-car garage studio so that I can work from home. And usually what I did in that studio was my sit-down creating, so smaller pieces. And then the one in downtown, it was creating all large pieces. And that's where this studio is that you see in the video here is my downtown studio. So all of that grew over the years, and none of it came quickly and easily. I've been at it for 8 years now, and I would say in the last 4 years is where the majority of my growth happened. But I truly believe it happened because in combination of doing all of my postings and being on social media regularly, I was also getting better at my art. My art was really developing a lot more. This style that I'm creating in now, my which is my love for fields of flowers, here I'm showing you how I just put tape on the backside. So I had taken this off and put it on my white wall so that I can look at it without all that noise around it. So there I'm pointing out some areas that I want to tackle. So going back to what I was saying, I really feel that in 2018, when I finally discovered my voice and my style, I was really deepening that practice and getting better at my craft by doing more and more practice in that same style so that it became almost second nature to me to be able to create that way. I think that going back to in combination of having found my style and practiced and practiced and practiced it a lot more, plus having that social media presence, bringing those two together really helped push me forward these last few years. Even during COVID, I think we were all worried when that first started happening in March of 2020 when we went into lockdown. I just spent a lot of time creating. I was even creating art that I was giving away. I was creating these smaller pieces and I was doing giveaways for those. I was doing online sessions that were a lot of fun. They were the quote unquote Paint with Betty sessions that I really enjoyed. And that just, just that continued practice was really important. So if you are starting off creating now and looking to art as being a source of income for you, I encourage you to really get strong in your art and what you're creating so that you've got a really great piece of art, type of art, style of art that you can be putting out there. And at the same time, work on your social media presence. I think that, there are other routes you can go, and I do talk about that. I've got a video about that as well, but you can certainly go the gallery route, and there's nothing wrong with that. I also have gallery representation, and it's a great way to go if you are the type that doesn't want to be on social media and doesn't care to do that type of marketing of yourself. Then turn to galleries to represent you. And that means, it means turning over 50% of your profits. However, it's a great way for you to continue focusing on creating if social media is really an area that makes you very unhappy. So you've got to go with what is going to make you happy so that you can continue to create. And it's going to be a different road for everybody, a different journey for everybody. In my, in these past several years, many years, I have met so many different artists, and everybody has this different path. Even the ones that are on social media, they don't all have the same path that I do just because we're all on social media. They do other things a little bit differently, and I think it's great because everyone finds what works for them, and you find what works for you by trying different things and figuring out what you like and what you don't like and what works and what doesn't work. So this piece is slowly starting to come together. I think we're definitely more than halfway done. I'm adding more details. There's still more work to do. It's not quite there. So I decided I didn't like those. I mean, when I just now put it there, I thought that didn't look bad, but at the time, it just wasn't working for me. So the great thing about acrylic paint is if you don't like it, spray it down, or if it's already dry, just paint right over it. I like the neutrals in this one. As much as I absolutely love bright, happy colors, I do love neutrals as well. I'm thinking about doing a series of neutrals. It's been kind of on my to-do list for a while. Okay, so I like these little dots better. And I think the lines were competing with those orange lines that I already have underneath there. So these dots complement them as opposed to, um, look exactly like them. I'm going over some of the marks that I've made before, just making them a little bit more noticeable there. So anyway, that was my story. Everyone's got a story. Everyone's got a different path of how they got to where they are now and where they're still going. I'm excited about my future. You know, I can't believe that, I didn't start creating till I was 50 years old. I didn't have room for it in my life before, and now that I do, and it's what I do full time, and I absolutely love it. There's there isn't a day that I wake up and I'm not excited about getting up and doing something that's art related, whether it's running my art business or it's getting in the studio and creating art. And in terms of social media, sometimes I feel like I'm such a slave to social media. because of that crazy algorithm and you're trying to, get more followers. It's all a numbers game, which makes me crazy at times. And this year, I'm telling myself this is 2022, and I'm trying to tell myself that this year I'm going to focus more on just putting out quality posts. And if Instagram doesn't think everybody should be seeing it, then fine, everyone's not going to see it. I hope that those folks who love my art comment so that they can see it more regularly. What I find is that, of course, even the ones that I comment on, those serve up in my feed so much more than any others. So if I don't see your art for a bit and I didn't get a chance to comment on it the last time, I may not see it for a while. So then I find myself hunting around for artists that I love that I haven't seen for a while. And with some of those, I can't remember their name. It's like I can envision their art, but then I don't always remember the name of the artist, which drives me crazy because it's hard to search for them. So then I started saving like my absolute favorite artists. I have a place where I save all of them, at least one picture of their art. That way, if I am trying to find them, I can easily go to my saved posts and find them there. So when I'm looking at this piece right now, and I'm hoping I changed it at the end, and that's the upper right and the lower left. I don't like it when I've got the same color in both corners like that. And I'm covering up that peachy color too. So this ends up being a much more neutral painting. A little bit of that peach is showing through around the edges, but not much. So I think I mentioned the Nova Color paints that I'm using. If I didn't, I know I mentioned them a lot in all of my other videos, so I'm not going to go too much into detail about them today. But if you are new, certainly check out my other videos. But in the description below, I will leave a link that takes you to my favorite Nova Color paints, or my most basic collection of Nova Color paints that I like to use. And from there, you'll find the link. It's an affiliate link. They now have an affiliate program. I've been talking about Nova Color paints for years, and I'm super excited that they've got an affiliate program that they've asked me to join. So if you use the link that is provided down below, you are truly helping me out, and I thank you for that. This one I ended up naming Seaside Garden, I and I can't take credit for it. It was Tess that suggested that title. She's on Instagram, and she came up with that title, and I just loved it, so I decided to use it here. So it's called Seaside Garden. Sometimes I have a hard time coming up with a title. On my phone, I like to keep in a notes area, I like to keep potential titles for artwork. That way, if I'm really stuck, I'll go to my list to see if there's something there. All right, so done with that session. Let's see, I'm coming back. Here we go. Okay, so I did do that. See the two corners? All right, so I didn't like those two corners, so I'm going to now tackle that. So what I did was I took a photo of it and I put it on my phone. I'm using an app called PicsArt, 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 yes, PicsArt. And that allows me to import in the photo, put a white border around it so I can just see the artwork. And then also sometimes I will make some edits to it right on the page, or I mean, right on the phone. All right, so there it is. And then I took a picture. Oh, I wonder if I took that picture or I may have just done that on my phone. Nope, I think I actually took that picture and I came back to show you guys what that looked like. So, calling it done. I am coming in now with my final mark making here. I always like to start off with a pencil, make some marks with it, and then move into some colored pencils. And I'm not sure if I use Neocolor 2 here or some others. You know what I just realized what I'm missing in my studio downtown are my Stabilo pencils. Or Stabilo Woodies. I think I need to buy a box of those for that studio. I know I've got one in Croatia, so when I'm visiting my parents, I've got my Stabilo Woodies there. And in my small studio, I also have my Woodies, small Stabilo Woodies. So, and I just remembered that I don't have any in my downtown San Jose studio. Not that it's absolutely necessary, but it's just fun to have access to all of those. Now what I've got in my hands there is a white China marker. And all of these are listed in my favorite art supplies in the description below, or just leave me a message and I'll send you a link. If you've been sticking it out all the way to this point, thank you so much. Again, I'd love it if you would subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video or enjoyed my commentary on the video. You can certainly share it with your friends as well. Maybe you've got some artist friends that would enjoy my artwork and also my background running an art business. And lastly, if you are still here with me, leave me a heart. I've been asking for that lately, just so I know, who's watching it to the end. And it really means a lot to me. So I like to give you a special thank you for sticking it out to the end. So you can leave me a heart, or you can just write the word heart. Either one will work. I know some folks who are watching it on their computer don't have easy access to the emoticons to leave a heart. So writing the word heart will also let me know that you've stuck around to the end here. My mark making at the end is very intentional. I like adding those final touches, kind of the icing on the cake. And I'm nodding my head. I'm not sure why. Who knows? Don't know what I was thinking at the time, but something. And I put down some marks, but sometimes I'll rub them out just to soften them out. And here I've got my pencil, so I'm getting ready to sign it. Kneeling on my little footstool down there. Yay, it is done. Always excited when it's done. Okay, I slowed down the video here so that you can see the details without me rushing through it. Here you can definitely see like those circles, those white ones were with the China marker. I love when you can see the layers underneath peeking through. There's some scratching into it as well when the paint was wet, so showing some of the colors that were underneath. Lots of yumminess going on there. Now this one I ended up matting and framing, and it is currently in Santa Cruz at Curated by the Sea, which is where I have some of my artwork. It's one of the galleries I'm with. Here's my studio space, and there's the heater I was talking about, trying to keep me warm. There's my chair where I love to sit. And every time I come to the studio, I change out of whatever clothing I'm wearing and I put on sweatpants and painting shirt and stuff like that. So you can see some of my clothing there. My boots were there. There's some 36 by 36 pieces. That whoops, that one that I just pointed to is one that I just finished. And then if we walk over to this corner, here's the one that I just did, and you can really see it much better now with just the white space around it. And you'll see there's a photo that I've got for you again at the end, showing me holding it with it matted and framed. Okay, there's the piece called Seaside Garden, and I'm including some close-up pictures as well. I kind of like these better because I'm not moving the camera and you can see it a bit better. Lots of yummy details. So even when the painting, I'm struggling with it, there's an example of how I like to sign the back of each one. And here, holding it with it matted and framed. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Again, please give me a thumbs up. You can check out more videos here, and you can subscribe if you haven't done so already. Wishing you a super fabulous and creative day. Take care.